All right, today, March 22nd, we're starting up a new book. Who was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? We're going to try and read the first few chapters today. All right, here we go. So, the introduction. Who was Martin Luther King Jr.? Growing up in the South was not easy for Martin Luther King Jr. He was born in 1929 when black people were treated very differently than white people. One day, Martin's father took his son to buy a pair of shoes. The store was empty, but the white shopkeeper told them that they would have to wait in the back of the store. Martin's father got very angry. Why did they have to sit in the back of the store? If he couldn't buy shoes for his son in the front of the store, he would not buy them at all. He took Martin by the hand and led them out of the store. As they walked down the street, his father said, "I don't care how long I have to live with this system. I will never accept it." The system in the South kept black people apart from white people. It was called segregation. Black children and white children went to separate schools. Black people had to hide at the back of the bus. As he grew up, had to ride at the back of the bus. As he grew up, Martin decided to fight for change, but it was a peaceful fight. Martin led marches. He band people together in protest. He made speeches. Many people listened to his words and joined his nonviolent fight. Martin Luther King Jr. fought using his words, not his fists. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream that all people could live together in peace and be treated equally. And though he died over 40 years ago, his dream lives on. Chapter 1, A Perfect Boy. On January 15th, 1929, a baby boy was born in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. The doctor said he was perfect. His parents were so happy. They named him Michael, and the same name that his father had. But when little Michael was 5, his father decided to change both of their names to Martin. So now the little boy became Martin Luther King Jr. Young Martin had a very happy home life. He had an older sister named Willie Christine. Everyone called her Chris. He also had a younger brother named Alfred Daniel. The Kings lived in a large house on Auburn Avenue in Atlanta. Their neighborhood was comfortable. No one was very rich or very poor. There was a lot of love in Martin's family. Martin never remembered his parents arguing. Martin's mother, Alberta Williams King, was very soft-spoken and easygoing. Her father was a well-known minister. After high school, she went to college, which was something that not many black women did back then. Alberta had a warm personality, and Martin always found it very easy to talk to her. Martin's father, Martin Sr., was a large man in many ways. He weighed about 220 pounds and was filled with self-confidence. Martin Jr. admired his father very much. His father's family was very poor and lived in a rundown shack. They were sharecroppers. A sharecropper is a farmer who does not own his own land. Instead, he works on another farmer's land and gets some of the crops for himself. Martin's father worked hard to get his high school and college diplomas. After college, he became a minister of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. The Ebenezer Baptist Church was like a second home to Martin. He sang in the church choir. He went to Sunday school and made many friends. It was there that Martin learned to get along with all kinds of people, kids as well as teachers. One of Martin's good friends was white. The boys had known each other ever since they were 3 years old. The boy didn't live near Martin, but his father owned a store across the street from the King house. Martin and the boy were always together, but when they turned 6, they started school. Martin went to a school for black children. The boy went to a school for white children. One day, the boy's father told his son that he could no longer play with Martin. Martin ran home and cried to his mother. It was the end of a friendship. That night at dinner, the family had a long talk. This was the first time that Martin realized how many white people felt about black people. Even so, his parents told Martin not to hate white people. It was his duty as a Christian to love everyone. Martin's mother told him that he should always keep a sense of somebodyness, that he was important, even though the outside world was telling him he was not. As Martin Luther King Jr. grew up, he became more and more aware of the problems facing black people, especially in the South. Everywhere he looked, there were white-only signs. Blacks could not go into many hotels, restaurants, and stores. Blacks could not even drink out of the same water fountains as whites. In many cities, blacks had to ride in the back of a bus. They had tried to sit in the front, but if they did, they were thrown in jail. And if black people wanted to go to a movie theater, they had to sit way up in the balcony. These rules were called Jim Crow laws, and they made Martin very angry. In high school, Martin had to take a long bus ride to and from school. He always walked to the back, where the other black people sat. Once, Martin and a teacher traveled by bus to Dublin, Georgia, for a speech contest. Martin won the contest and was very proud. On the way home to Atlanta, the bus driver ordered Martin and his teacher to give up their seats to white passengers. When they did not move right away, the bus driver became angry. It was the law, after all. They ended up standing in the aisle for the 90-minute ride. But Martin told himself, "One of these days, I'm going to put my body up there where my mind is." He knew that one day he would have a seat up front. Chapter 2, School Days. Martin Luther King Jr. was always a very good student. He loved to read and make speeches. He studied very hard and skipped 2 grades. At just 15 years old, he graduated from high school. That summer, Martin worked in Simsbury, Connecticut. It was Martin's first time in the North. He had a job in the tobacco fields. He was surprised to see how different life was for blacks in the North. Black and white children went to the same schools. There were no separate restaurants. Martin dreamed that this could happen in the South, too. If only there was some way he could make this dream come true. Martin returned to Atlanta to attend Morehouse College. This was the same college that his father had attended. All the students at the school were black. All the teachers were black, too. At first, Martin wasn't sure what he wanted to study. He knew that he wanted to spend his life helping black people. But what was the best way to do that? Perhaps he would follow his father's footsteps and become a minister. Or maybe he would become a lawyer. In college, Martin Luther King Jr. read an essay by a man named Henry David Thoreau. The essay was written in 1849. In this essay, Thoreau said that people have the right to disobey unjust laws. In Thoreau's time, the United States still allowed slavery. Thoreau wanted to protest slavery. He felt the government was wrong to allow it, so he refused to pay taxes. As a result, he was thrown in jail. But Thoreau did not mind being in jail. He was making a point. Martin liked the way Thoreau thought. He also liked that Thoreau protested in a peaceful way. 2 of Martin's favorite college teachers were ministers. Because of them, he decided to become a minister as well. As a minister, Martin could speak out against segregation. He could show his people how much he cared. When Martin Luther King Jr. was only 17, he gave a sermon at his father's church. He wasn't a minister yet, but the sermon was heartfelt and inspiring. His words not only touched the members of the congregation, but his father as well. The very next year, Martin became a minister and also an assistant in his father's church. In 1948, Martin graduated from college. He was 19. Martin's father wanted him to stay at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, but Martin wanted to continue his education. In September, he entered Kosher Theological Seminary, a school for religion in Chester, Pennsylvania. Out of 100 students at the school, only 6 were black. At Crozier, Martin studied the teachings of people such as Mahatma Gandhi, the first leader of modern-day India. Like Thoreau, Mahatma Gandhi believed change could come from peaceful protests. In 1951, Martin graduated from Crozier. He was the top student in his class. He still thought there was more to learn about helping people through protest. So he moved to Massachusetts to study at the Boston University School of Theology. In Boston, Martin met Coretta Scott. Coretta grew up in Alabama, but she was in Boston studying to be a singer. On their first date, Martin drove his green Chevrolet to pick her up. Over lunch, they talked about how hard it was to be black in the United States. They also talked about how people could live together in peace. Martin was impressed by Coretta. After only an hour, Martin knew that they were going to get married one day. And he was right. On June 18th, 1953, they were married at the Scott's home in Marion, Alabama. The young couple lived in Boston. Martin had to finish his studies at Boston University, and Coretta had to complete her work to become a music teacher. When he was done with school, he became Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin was now ready to start his life's work. But what exactly would he do with that? Then a little excerpt here. It says Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was a political and spiritual leader of India. He was born on October 2nd, 1869, in the city of Porbandar. At the age of 18, Gandhi went to London to study to become a lawyer. After college, Gandhi went to work in South Africa, where black Africans were treated as second-class citizens. Gandhi soon found out that Indians were treated the same way. He was asked to take off his turban in the courtroom. He had to ride in a separate car on trains. These experiences made Gandhi decide to lead peaceful protests. He believed this was the best way to show that discrimination was very wrong. Later, back in India, Gandhi played a great part in freeing his homeland from British rule. Even though he spent many years in prison, Gandhi practiced nonviolence through his life. Sadly, Gandhi died violently. He was killed on January 30th, 1948 by Nathuram Godse, who was a Hindu radical. He thought that Gandhi was responsible for weakening India. Today, Gandhi's books and teachings live on and have inspired many people, including Martin Luther King Jr.